Well, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here, and we are very much excited to listen to Porik. Porik, thank you very much for joining us today and taking the initiative and taking care of the data. We were discussing the data from a Turkey perspective, the site index report last time in Istanbul, and I remember we promised you that we will give you a little bit more data in that respect. Last time you did a great job with six entries, but this time we managed to have 140 full ones. I'm very proud of that, and thank you all my colleagues, our members, as well as the industry, the local industry, for giving such a support. For you, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows Porik, but just to summarize, I don't know how you can summarize Porik's experiences, but he is one of the leaders in the entire global industry. He is now the managing partner of Sulnua, and he is our CMO of Site Global. More than 30 years experience in the entire business world. Correct me and contribute, Porik, when I'm doing leaving something out. He started, I mean, he was a co-founder of Delaney Marketing Consultant with Patrick. We all know Patrick as well. And then they successfully handed over and sold the company to MCI. And then they started Ovation Global DMC, and they launched it successfully over 100 locations all around the world. Besides that, Porik has also served in a wide variety of leadership roles, including head of department while teaching. So he is a teacher, so behave when he is doing his presentation. He was the managing director of the Aviation Group and the global vice president at MCI, chairman of various pan-industry committees at the board level, including Tourism Ireland, international president of the Association of Sites. So he was one of our past presidents. And besides that, he is a musician, he is a teacher, he is a husband and father of 6 kids. Am I correct?
I know.
Excellent. So I don't know when he managed to find the time, that career, to make 6 kids. I'm very pleased that you're in the travel industry. Otherwise, you would end up with 26. I'm sure. Well, thank you for joining today, Porik. I don't know if you have something addition to share with in that regard about you, but you can. As Rajiv used to say, nothing is free in this world. I have a small message to our members and our industry colleagues to share before you start. It's about our social responsibility program. Everybody knows about our initiative. I'm sure everybody heard about it, but I'm just repeating it again. We want to start the support the poor people, poor students who are needing support online for tools. So that's why we started the initiative with the Okul Destek Association. And it's going, you know, 10 days ago, it's going very interestingly, we are very excited about it. But I wish that was one of our meetings that we announced the initiative. It will basically be online support in English classes, and Site Turkey has taken the initiative in running the entire project and introducing it. And we need sponsors. A lot of our members and the industry colleagues have started to promote it. It's about being, you can have 3 ways of contributing. You can donate, obviously that's a first priority. You can be a volunteer teacher, you can be a volunteer coordinator, but for the details you can talk to us, especially in this period of the time when everybody's giving each other presents. You have also the option of contributing as a New Year's gift, Christmas gift, or even as a birthday gift, a certificate, and you can donate money on behalf of the kids. So I don't know if you would be willing to it. So far, we had a great contribution from everybody, but we need more. So please try to donate. Small, minor, it doesn't matter. We have a great support already, but keep that in mind. So that's about me. That's my message, the maximum that I had to talk. Porik, now over to you.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you so much, and very impressed by the presentation that you just showed about the CSR initiative. When we start talking about the index results, there are some interesting outcomes in relation to corporate social responsibility there as well. I was smiling to myself during Hassan's introduction, particularly when he mentioned that we sold our company to MCI in 2007. Between 2007 and 2012, I think the #1 question that Patrick and myself were asked at whatever industry event we ever turned up was, how did you manage to sell your company to MCI? And I have a feeling that following the year that we've just had, that we might actually have to prepare an entire webinar on how to actually sell your company, because I think some of us have found ourselves in situations of difficulty and wouldn't mind such a possibility happening. Anyway, that's a digression. I'm here to talk about the Incentive Travel Industry Index and to fulfill a promise made to Hassan and to many of you in Turkey last year, when I took the risk of highlighting a poor response from the stage of a beautiful venue that we had our executive summit in last year. And certainly the response this year has been phenomenal, led, I think, by Hassan and many of you. We succeeded in getting one of the single biggest number of responses from any source market stroke destination in the world from Turkey. So thank you for that. And that's essentially the premise for being able to come back and present to you an interesting report that has quite a lot of very specific elements in it that relate only to Turkey. So hopefully there will be the value of getting some insight into what's happening globally in the incentive travel industry, particularly in the context of COVID-19, but also having a filter on that specifically from the perspective of Turkey. So I'm going to share my screen now and jump right into the presentation. So yeah, we're calling this a kind of we're calling it interim results and some emerging themes. The actual truth is that there is so much and so depth a source of data available in this particular study that it would take many hours and many days to actually go through all of the possible outcomes. So what SITE will be doing over the next while is focusing on different themes that are emerging from it. And what I will present to you today will focus on some general themes around the whole issue of recovery. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking a little bit about destination selection and how COVID-19 is impacting on the kind of destinations that buyers are looking for programs in the post-COVID era. And we're going to talk a little bit about program inclusions and what way the actual makeup of an incentive travel experience as it's delivered in a destination, how that might be changing in the light of COVID as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get through that in about 40 minutes, and then we can have some interaction. Just to pay tribute once again to the board of SITE Turkey, led by Hassan. It was a phenomenal effort. Getting people to respond to surveys is not an easy thing, because everybody tells you that they will do it, but you don't really have any immediate proof that they've actually done it. Because they're saying, oh yeah, or they'll tell you that they've done it already. But I was able to give Hassan regular reports based on how many were coming on a particular link that Hassan was distributing with you and with the help of the SITE Turkey board. So we did have good data, and I think that enabled many of you then to get on the phone, send further emails, and really push to get the kind of response level that we did get. And it was a real kind of, it was a real collaborative approach, and I think very much characteristic of the way that SITE operates. The Incentive Travel Industry Index is a joint initiative with FICP, the IRF, and SITE Foundation. and our research partner is Oxford Economics. So Oxford Economics, probably the most well-known research company dedicated specifically to the travel area. And then when you drill down into travel, with a very, very strong specialization in our area, in the area of business travel. FICP, Finance and Insurance Conference Professionals. Many of us know that association. Many of us are members of FICP. We regard it as a very, very interesting association to be part of, because through FICP, we get connected with the actual corporate end user that's organizing incentives for financial and insurance companies. So it's a great and very fruitful organization for many of us to be part of, and a very useful research partner for us, because we were getting data directly from their members. IRF, Incentive Research Foundation, which has been in operation for a number of years, really dedicated to research in the incentive space and producing ongoing research that's very, very useful to us. Site Foundation brings obviously our global footprint to the stage here. The other organizations have a US or a North American centricity to them, but Site Foundation through Site obviously has that true global reach, and that makes a huge difference in terms of the scope of the data. Research like this happens because we get partners who step up to help us with it. And with that, I want to pay tribute to Destination Canada, who are our champion level sponsor, and then also to Abu Dhabi, to Accor, and to IMEX Group, who are prime level sponsors of this particular study. I just need to move things around a little bit so that I can see the slide properly. There we go. So here we go. Here's the overall picture of how it ended up. So Hassan will remember calls from me at a very early stage when we had 50 responses or 150 responses. We actually ended up with 2,882 submissions. Now they have been drilled down into, and what we've kind of ended up with is just under 2,500 valid responses. So the data, and I should emphasize this now, and I'm sorry I don't have a slide to give you the address, but let me say it, and I will say it throughout the presentation. If you go to siteglobal.com, that's the site website, so siteglobal.com, and if you go to the foundation tab and scroll down, you'll see Incentive Travel Index. When you open that particular tab, you will find a button that will take you to the microsite where we have uploaded all of this data on a Tableau file. So Tableau is a little bit to Excel what Adobe Acrobat is to Word. It's a way of making data easily accessible and easily transportable. So there's a Tableau file of all the data on that microsite. And what you can actually do is you can filter the data, and you can look at responses from a buyer perspective only, look at responses from a European perspective only. So it really puts you in the driver's seat in terms of how you slice and dice the data. So recommend that highly to you. Siteglobal.com, foundation tab, and then just go down and that'll take you to the microsite. Of the submissions that we got, we make a distinction between a source market on the one hand and a destination on the other. So a source market is a market typically that contracts incentive travel experiences and sends them then to another country. So the biggest source market in the world would be the US. In Europe, the biggest source markets would be Great Britain and Germany. So they are kind of countries that have strong corporate activity, and around those corporations then there's an ecosystem of operators, of organizations that are offering incentive travel as a solution for those companies in relation to the whole idea of performance improvement and so on. So a destination on the other hand then is obviously where the incentive travel is delivered. And the interesting thing you'll see in a few minutes, we have data from Turkey that will characterize Turkey as both a source market and a destination. So we have a small number of actual, let's say, buyers that have responded from Turkey, as well as a larger number of suppliers. Great Britain as well is both a source market and a destination. Denmark, Germany is too. Earlier today, I had a conversation with the DMCs in Malta. Malta is exclusively a destination. There's no source market happening there. There are no industries that are actually creating incentive travel experiences and sending Maltese qualifiers elsewhere. Ireland is a little bit like that as well, although there is, believe it or not, a growing source market activity in Ireland. And in fact, today, Ireland has reached the pinnacle in the world for economic activity in the light of COVID. We're the country that has actually kind of recovered the fastest. I don't experience that myself when I go out the door, but that's what the economic indicators are telling us. So that's the picture of source markets and destinations. So we've data from 41 source markets and from 91 destinations. So a very, very global picture. We've also data from 19 industry verticals. The number one vertical in our survey is finance and insurance. And I think all of us, particularly on the DMC side and the hotel side, we know that, we see it. They're the inquiries that come in, and the most common inquiries are coming from finance and insurance companies. Automotive is number 2, pharma is number 3, IT number 4, and direct selling number 5 in terms of the survey itself. In relation to how it all kind of breaks out between the buyer and supplier side, incentive houses and corporates make up 46% of all responses. And this is in the aggregate global picture of the data. So 46% are buyers, the remainder 54% then are suppliers. So it's kind of well balanced, slightly more so on the supplier side, but we're very happy with 46% coming specifically from the buyer community. In terms of how it splits out from a geographical perspective, 43% from North America, and then the balance, the majority, 57% from other parts of the world, 34% from Europe, Middle East and Africa, 14% from APAC, 9% from Latin America. So, you know, a very good spectrum of responses. When we look at it specifically from Turkey, the Turkey perspective, this is how it comes out. And I think you'll find this interesting. Not surprising, 43% are DMCs. Turkey has always had a very, very rich ecosystem of DMCs. Probably one of the richest ecosystems of DMCs in any of the destinations that I know. 35% are regarded as suppliers to the incentive market. When we drill down into that, most of those are hotels. But look, we've also got incentive travel agencies, and we've got incentive travel end users. 3%, small number, but still that means that 17% of the Turkish responses came from buyers. When we drill down into that, healthcare is number 1, finance and insurance is number 2. They're the main sectors that are represented by the Turkish buyers. Then 83% suppliers. So there you go. That's to start us off. That's the first kind of part of the presentation. I don't know, Hassan, if people want to ask questions at this stage, will I just keep going?
Let's ask the audience if anybody has wanted to ask a question so far.
And feel free to put the question into the
chat box, yeah.
Kind of chat box as well. Hopefully I'll be able to see it there. But I don't want to go on all the time without kind of
Merve can help us out there, Borik. Merve has a close eye on the chat box, so she can warn us when we have a question and a couple of questions. So please go ahead.
That's great. So and just be aware of that. Like at any stage, just please ask the question, because the more kind of the question, the more the report and the presentation is tailored to the questions you have, obviously the better. So in terms of what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the global incentive travel industry? And you can see there's a variety of different options that were given here to people to select from. And if you look closely, this is the interesting thing, and I think we realized this when we were designing the survey at the very beginning. If you look closely, it's not all negative. And I think that's a very important kind of insight to start off with. First of all, in terms of outright closure of businesses or going out of business or whatever, only 7% of the average global figure is related to that particular option. That's relatively small. If we drill down into what's on the screen here, what we're looking at is we're looking at an impact that's mainly temporary, that's focused on cost cutting. So no surprises there, but also, and here's the good news, also developing new skills, looking at new revenue streams, achieving a better work-life balance. Now, I think that's a great story. And when we come to look at the Turkey responses here, I think you'll find it particularly interesting. But, you know, look down through the elements there. Yes, we know we had to reduce budgets. We know we had to reduce company hours, salaries, and benefits. We know we suspended business travel. We know people got laid off. But we also used the time to intensify digital and virtual marketing. We made use of government supports. We focused more time on learning and development. We explored other ways of making money. And we switched a little bit, particularly if we're in that buyer category, we switched a little bit maybe from a travel focused reward into something that wasn't perhaps travel focused. So that's the aggregate global picture that you're seeing there. But what's it like in Turkey? How does Turkey compare and how does it contrast? Well, the first thing is, surprisingly, there's a greater number, there's a bigger percentage of businesses in Turkey that have closed, restructured, or sold than elsewhere in the world. The global average, remember, was 7%. This is 3 percentage points higher in Turkey. So I'll leave that one out there as a kind of a thought with you. Did you see that yourself? Do you know people who have actually closed their doors, have businesses consolidated? Because that's what the data is telling us here. The other thing is, and I'm highlighting elements that have come higher on the Turkish response than on the average response. So Turkish businesses, and I think Hassan already said this at the beginning, were able to make use of government supports. And that's a fantastic thing. The United States, for example, is one of the countries least able to make use of government supports. In Great Britain, use of government supports very high, in Australia very high, and also in Turkey. Another thing, higher in Turkey than anywhere else, is more focus and time for learning and development. That's a wonderful thing. That's an industry kind of looking at the reality and then being opportunistic, saying, but hold on a second, I mightn't be able to actually send out RFPs and activate programs or whatever, but I can use the time to develop my skills. And then much lower in Turkey, possibly because of the government supports, the furloughing or the laying off of staff. That was very high in the previous slide, much lower here in Turkey. So already we're seeing that there is quite a regional differentiation in terms of how COVID has actually impacted on a destination or a source market. So just to summarize that for you then, more outright closures, but fewer furloughs, more use of government support, and more time devoted to learning and development.
Before you move on, Porek, there is a question for the initial slide about the ratio of suppliers and clients. It's from Mikael from Consys. Does this demographics for Turkey's slide means that it is unhealthy with regard to the ratio of suppliers and buyers? Can you address that?
Okay, just to ask the question again, Hassan, I didn't quite hear it.
Does this demographic for Turkey slide means that it is unhealthy with regard to the ratio of suppliers and buyers? Well, it's a question like, I mean, we have more suppliers rather than the ratio of suppliers and buyers was 95% was, as far as I remember, the supplier side, and 5% was the client side, the buyer side.
17% buyer and
17, sorry, yeah.
17 and 83. But that's the reality of it's the reality of the destination. It's the reality of the database of contacts that that received the survey to fill out. There are some destinations, as I've said already, where the actual demographic is 100% supplier. There are some where it's 80% buyer. This is just the reality of the way it is. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. It just helps us to understand the data, because we know that the data predominantly is coming from suppliers, but there is also an element of data that's coming from the buyer side. There are also there are 5 different pathways through the survey, and one of those pathways is buyers only. So we will see shortly some responses specifically from Turkish buyers that has nothing to do with suppliers at all.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's unhealthy. It's just less data. So.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry for interrupting.
So in terms of recovery, I think we have an interesting situation here, as you'll see when I put the Turkish figures on top of what's here. So just to explain what's on your screens at the moment, the blue is the average all over the world. So you can see that all over the world, business in 2020 dropped dramatically from, you see where that brown line going across? That's the kind of the 2019 level. That's the 100%. And business around the world dropped from that 100% by a full 77% to 23% for 2020. So that's the global average. And that's the blue figure. Follow the blue figure through, and you can see in 2021, the global average goes up to 59. So we expect that we'll be at 59% of where we were in 2019. In 2022, the global average is 88, which means we expect we'll be at 88% of where we were in 2019. And then in 2023, the global average figure is 110. So we think we'll be at 110% of where we were in 2019 by 2023. So that would be regarded as recovery. So we have recovered, we're back at where we were 4 years previously, but we've increased a little bit more beyond that. The orange is the US, the gray is Europe, and the yellow is Canada. And I put the yellow on this to help make a distinction between the US and Canada, because they're sometimes lumped together as North America, but they are markets that are actually performing and behaving quite differently. Let's take the US, so the orange. In the US, business was down by 75%, so only 25% of the 2019 level was reached in 2020. That increases to 63% in 21, 92% in 22, and then in 23, the US is saying we're home and hosed, we're back, we're going to be doing even better than we were in 2019. But it's going to take us 4 years to get to that point. And I should emphasize to you at this stage that the data was in the field between the end of August and the middle of October. So it reflects sentiment in the marketplace, in the global marketplace at that particular time. If we took the survey last week, I think we'd get a different answer. So, just take that into account. It reflects a particular way of looking at things in that Q3 of 2020. Europe, obviously, you know, Turkey is part of Europe. It's also part of Asia, but it's definitely kind of a strong sort of, you know, future European Union member. Look at how Europe is behaving. It's not as good as either the global average or as the US. So Europe is only at 92% in 2023. So it hasn't actually properly recovered. Okay, so here's your question. Type into the box, type into your box what you think Turkey will be at in 2023. So if Europe is going to be at 92% of the 2019 levels in 2023, what do you think Turkey will be at in 2023? And I'll give you some help. So in 2020, Turkey was down 80%. So it's in a worse position than the global average and a worse position than Europe. It's still in a worse position in 2021. So I can't see any of those answers, Hassan. Can you tell me what people are saying?
I'm sorry, I thought you see them. Let me read them through. Here we go. 100, 90, 90, 80, 125, 80, 99, 88.21. I love that one. 110, 75, 92. That's also a nice one. 92, 80, 90, 80. Mustafa is precise. That's a comment to Mustafa.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. So we got a range there from somewhere around 70 up to 125, which is interesting. Okay, so in 2022, the survey, the Turkish responses to the survey are at 97%. This is going to blow you away, guys. Look. So in the survey, Turkish respondents predicted that they would be at 141% of where they were in 2019. So what we're seeing there is obviously a gradual recovery and then a very strong recovery. And like the only explanation that I could think of for this was something around perhaps Turkey's experience over many, many decades at dealing with the equivalent of a pandemic. It may not have been a pandemic, it may have been a terrorist activity, or it may have been something else. But Turkey has it has resilience built into it. It has experience at dealing with challenging circumstances and then coming out at the end of it. And I'm just wondering whether that's what we're seeing here, that there's kind of, there's certainly the reality of where we are now, but there's a strong belief that Turkey will come back very, very strong. And that's coming out in those figures.
Let me read you some of the comments here. It's funny ones. Mustafa is again commenting. No, it's Ömer comment. We were drunk by then. I'm taking asked the question according to what I typed in 2019 because all the comparison of the index report was based on comparison with 2019. So it also shows the result of the of 2020's expectation why it's so low, because it was already low and we tried to come up. Participants. We used to survive such situations for at least 5 years. We called it Sherbetli. That's Mustafa's team colleague. Sherbetli is your wishful thinking. And Jan Tekin is repeating his question. Yes, I know, but with expectation of participants according to what? I don't know what you mean, Jan Tekin. If you switch on your camera microphone, you can ask the question directly.
Expectations that they expect 141% over in comparison to 2019. According to what criteria our participants expect travel will be back in Turkey, because really 141 is very optimistic. I mean, it is. I mean, how
that's the result of the survey. So we are all very positive and sherbetli, as Mustafa's colleague said. I think. I mean, that's an expectation. Obviously, I know where you're coming from. I mean, it's most likely including the governance change, no more wars, no more coup attempts or meteor crash to Istanbul. So if those all not happen, we will have a nice 2023. I think that's the wishful thinking of the people. Porik, do you want to add something?
No, I see, like in a way, all we're doing is we're looking at the results, and interpreting the results is the interesting thing. You know, I can interpret with certain filters. You can interpret with other filters because you're in the location. So you have a sense of why that might be the case. I'll just keep going, if you don't mind, and talk about destination selection, because I think, again, there's some interesting sort of takeaways here that can help us just with our overall planning. And what we have here is we have the comparison of 3 years of destination selection by North American buyers. So I think we'd all agree we really want North American buyers. They are the ones that bring the biggest programs, the biggest spending programs, and you know, it's really, really good business. So if you look at destination selection for North American buyers, the consistent element over the last 3 years is that the United States is the #1 destination for North American buyers. And that's not surprising. It's pretty much the same in all regions. So whatever is the dominant source market in a particular region, that also is often the destination of #1 choice. So what we're seeing here is Europe coming up in 4th position for North American buyers in 2019, in 2018. In 2019, that was, and this is the picture that we were talking about when we were in Istanbul last year, like that Western Europe at that time had risen in the rankings and was very, very much on the crest of a wave with North American buyers. So what has been the impact of COVID? Well, not surprising, it's dropped right down. And if you look at all of the destinations surrounding all of the first 5 destinations that US buyers are looking at, or that North American buyers are looking at, the United States #1, Canada #2, Hawaii #3, Caribbean #4, Mexico #5, and Alaska, they're all de facto North American locations. The surprising one, the really surprising one here, although then maybe when we try to when we think about it, maybe it's not surprising. But what looks surprising to me initially is that Oceania, which is New Zealand and Australia and Fiji and Tahiti and places like that. So a very remote, long haul destination for a North American buyer. That's coming in 7th position, whereas Western Europe, which is a tried and trusted location for North American buyers, is coming in 9th position. And this is one of the outcomes of the survey that I'll refer to at the end in relation to my summary, that destinations that are being considered for selection are typically destinations that have a strong perception of safety around them. And safety has become front and center now in relation to destination selection. It used to be destination appeal. That used to be the #1 consideration, but that's not the case anymore. It's destination safety. And Australia and New Zealand, in the current climate, have a very, very strong reputation for safety. The way that they dealt with COVID-19 is regarded as exemplary, and that's impacting on how buyers are thinking about where they will actually place their business. So Western Europe, and unfortunately all the countries that are part of Western Europe get lumped into one. We don't have an individual selection criteria. There's 200 countries in the world. You couldn't actually run a survey on that. So we need to band them into broad kind of regions. Western Europe is taking a hit. All of the destinations that are popular, other than being close by, they all also have a very, very strong outdoor kind of context. Think about Canada. Canada is all about the outdoors. It's all about nature, high mountains, beautiful lakes, beautiful sea. The same with Hawaii. So you can see how the whole sort of impact of COVID is having a huge kind of role in relation to how I think about a place that I would like to bring my buyers to. And there's another part of the survey where we look at, it's not in my slide presentation, but we look at the things that people will not select. And one of the things that people will not select is a city, because cities are regarded as too busy, too many people close together. I go on to the next one. I've done the same for UK buyers. Now, unfortunately, the N count, in other words, the number of buyers that responded in the UK was relatively small. But equally, you know, we can present this as 24 incentive travel experts in the UK. This is what they are telling us. So you'll see a similar thing in relation to Western Europe. It was number one in 2018. It actually, for UK buyers, went down to number 3 in 2019, and the United States was in number 1 position in 2019. Do you know where the United States is now for UK buyers? It's in last place. It's in 15th position on the list. So if you wanted kind of proof of that whole sentiment thing, there's a good example for you. Western Europe is back to the number 1 position for UK buyers, which is good news for all of us. But look at the other locations that UK buyers are looking at. Caribbean, Gulf states. So what I'm seeing there is I'm seeing sunshine. I'm seeing warmth. So again, a good reason why Turkey, I think, can really sort of position itself for UK buyers. Again, Canada is coming up for UK buyers. So too is Southeast Asia, which is unusual. Emerging Europe, so new destinations in Europe like Slovenia, for example, Poland, Slovakia, Estonia. Alaska is there. That's typical again of this outdoor sort of preference that people have. Hawaii, the same. Other Africa and Central America. Just as a little kind of addition, because the number of buyers was small, the Turkish buyers, their number 1 location was Western Europe, followed by emerging Europe, followed by the Gulf states, followed by, and here you go, Australia, New Zealand, Oceania, coming in 4th position. Now, again, Turkey has the amazing advantage of having probably the most connected airline in the world. I'm not sure if you've lost some routes as a result of COVID, but certainly Turkish Airlines were doing an amazing job at building an incredible network. So getting from Istanbul to New Zealand or to Australia is an awful lot easier than for most other Europeans who have to go through the likes of Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or Doha. But that's what Turkish buyers are looking at: Western Europe, emerging Europe, the Gulf states, and then Australia and New Zealand. Right. Any questions? Any comments on that?
Antekin, do you want to repeat your question or your remark that's about being romantic?
Yes, actually, Hassan, for even 2023, if we have citywide congress and conventions confirmed in our country, we can have more realistic forecast. But if we don't have anything definite, this is really a very romantic forecast because even if there is an election in 2023, this is also a risky situation for us.
I totally agree with you. But Can, keep in mind, 2019 was also our recovery. So we were only on 60% in 2019.
Exactly.
So the expectation when you have is that you recover to 100%. And with some romantic, as you said, input, you will hopefully come to the good old days like in the 2006 or 2007. So that's a kind of assurance that people are having still trust in our industry for our country, and we will come back in the picture in the 2023.
I agree
with
you. It is good, actually. You know,
yeah, I mean, it's wishful thinking.
I am always a very positive person, Hasan.
Exactly, I know.
We should be realistic at the same time.
Yeah.
All right.
Porrick, did I comment properly?
I think you did. Yeah, I think that was an excellent comment. There's another part of the survey that looks at program design and inclusions. And I think this can be particularly helpful for any of us who are in the DMC sector and are considering how we can position the different experiences that are available to us in our destination. So which of those experiences should we be actually putting forward or highlighting now on the basis that there's a kind of a change sentiment around what people want. And you can see that very clearly if you compare 2019 with 2020. So in 2019, the #1 success factor for an incentive travel experience was cultural experiences. So that's not strange or unusual. It's kind of what we would expect. Incentive travel is all about travel, and travel is all about discovering other cultures. So that makes sense. Group dining and team building also makes sense because incentive travel experiences are promoted by companies. And in promoting these particular experiences, they want outcomes, and those outcomes are to do with bonding their workforce together, creating opportunities for discussion between qualifiers and C-suite executives, building company culture, and so on. So group dining and team building are really good ways for companies to do that. And companies will always look for those elements to be included in the programs that they're having. And then the last one in 2019 was this kind of luxury or bucket list experiences. And it's hard to define exactly what they are without referencing the movie called The Bucket List, which tells the story of a man who's been given bad news about his health. And therefore he writes a list of all the things he dies before he kicks the bucket, as we say in English. To kick the bucket means to die. So that becomes his bucket list. And inevitably travel experiences will be on that list. And inevitably those travel experiences will be once in a lifetime things that you could only ever do in your imagination, unless you happen to be an incentive travel qualifier. Just look at 2020. I think it's fascinating. The #1 thing that now is regarded as the core program inclusion is that bucket list experience, because travel has been taken away from us. So what do we want now more than everything? We want travel. And what kind of travel? Well, we want the travel that we could only dream of. We want those bucket list experiences. So that's the #1. Cultural experiences remains, but group dining and team building fall below the top 4. So there's a feeling here that companies realize we can't be too heavy with our objectives in relation to these incentive travel experiences. We don't want to be forcing our qualifiers to eat dinner together or to have team building on the beach or whatever. We want them to just enjoy the wonderful transformative power of travel. But we also want them to do something useful. We also want them to travel with a conscience. So CSR is #3. And in a way, CSR is broad. So it's corporate social responsibility. The whole sustainability piece is a core element in that. But the social responsibility piece is also very strong. And I loved your presentation at the beginning, Hasan, which is all about that social responsibility thing, which is wonderful. That's #3. And then wellness, which again think about it, an incentive travel experience is given to a qualifier who works really, really hard. So you're drained, you're exhausted. When you go on that program, you want me time. You want something that allows you to take it easy. You want a spa treatment. You want good food. You want wellness experiences. So in a way, what we're seeing in terms of program design and inclusion is a refocus on the intrinsic joy of travel. We're seeing a focus on travel with no strings attached. So I won the company trip. I'm going to Istanbul, but my program isn't full of obligations that I have to actually fulfill in relation to my company, wanting me to have dinner and all this kind of stuff. And then the final thing is travel with a conscience. The next one, and actually, yeah, the next one is, I just need to move the window around a little bit again here. Yeah, the next one is around strategies for risk management. So in terms of, you know, I'm a DMC in the destination. What are the things that are going to permanently be different now in terms of how I do my DMC activity, and what are going to be temporarily changed? And you can see here that the strongest permanent change is going to be around new sanitation measures. So the safety piece is coming out very, very strongly here. The second, emergency preparedness planning and execution. So again, have you taken courses in emergency preparedness? A sister association of SITE, the ADMI Association, has a really good course in emergency preparedness, which is specifically tailored for DMCs. Crisis plans to communicate risk management topics, that's also high. So I'm going to take you to the next slide quickly, because it lists here the kind of the hierarchy of things to focus on. So new sanitation measures will be permanently more important in program design. Emergency preparedness will be permanently more important, and so on. Crisis plans to communicate risk management, management of health concerns, hands-free technology, and so on. If you were to take the top 5 here and sit down with your colleagues in your DMC, I think it would be a really, really excellent exercise to do. And just ask yourself that question. How prepared are we in relation to these safety precautions? Because buyers are telling us they are going to be permanently more important than they were before. There are others then that will be temporarily more important. So the permanent ones we should definitely focus on and invest in. The temporary ones are a little bit more optional, let's say. So social distancing on location, that's current, but that will go away when we have a widespread vaccine. New sanitation measures, they will get less. Management of health concerns and health security, they will get less too. So I think just some important takeaways there in terms of the actual business of how programs will be designed and how they're changing. This is the final slide that I'll show you, which is shifts in program characteristics. And the question here was, in the light of COVID, how are the incentive travel programs in which you are involved shifting? So look at number 1. Overall participant safety is number 1. Being perceived as safe from a health perspective is number 2. And then here's great news. The presence of a good DMC is the 3rd most important shift in program characteristics for 2020. And that's really, really telling, because I think all of us know that there has been a systematic disintermediation of DMCs going back 2 decades now, maybe even 3 decades. Ever since the internet created the illusion that all information was there and that you didn't need a local partner because you could get any information you wanted on the internet. Many buyers fell for that and have worked out structures that they believe work in terms of bypassing DMCs. But when a pandemic comes and when you need an absolute expert in a destination, well, then all of a sudden it shifts and the importance and presence of a good DMC becomes more and more important. So I think that's great news. It's a great takeaway from this survey. And I think that particular point should be read in the light of the previous points. So a DMC today, what should be his or her concerns in terms of being ready to be that destination expert? Because it's slightly different from before. It used to be about information. Now it's about sanitation. Now it's about kind of health and safety and things like that.
Or can I ask you a question?
Because it's a busy slide, I've summarized them here, but participant safety, the perception of destination safety, the role of the DMC, they're the top three things in terms of how programs are changing. After that, then I think it's stuff we know, like domestic. There's going to be a much bigger focus on domestic. There's going to be a much bigger focus on value for money. There'll be shorter distance. So therefore, that German company that has been looking at Rio de Janeiro or at Bangkok will now be looking at Istanbul because it's easier and closer to get to. So there's in a way, it's a swings and roundabout situation, as we say in English. There's some losses, but there's also some gains. Mountain locations, outdoor locations, lakeside locations are all going to be more popular than they have been in the past because there is a kind of an aversion to cities. And in terms
before you move on, can I ask a question in regards of the previous slide about the fact of a good DMC, presence of a good DMC? Is it also not linked to the financial sides, financial stability of a DMC when they refer to a good DMC? It's not necessarily the creativity or the knowledge. Is it the effect of COVID that people will look for financial healthy DMCs?
I think that's a brilliant point, Hassan. I think that's a really, really, really good point. And I think in a previous presentation that I made, there were lots of questions around kind of contracts and insurance and matters of that nature. And I think there's going to be a massive, massive change in relation to the way that we contract business into the future. Because particularly from a hotel perspective or an airline perspective, contracts were very draconian, and in many respects, particularly on the airline side, very unreasonable. I think it's going already. You can see airlines have actually become nice people all of a sudden because they realize that the previous contracts were all one-sided. And one thing that the pandemic has done is it's actually taught us, no, we need to be there needs to be win-win here. It needs to protect both sides. But you're dead right. I think a DMC has many characteristics. It's not just about how many contacts the DMC has in the destination, how knowledgeable they are. It's also about how financially secure they are. It's also about how emergency prepared they are to deal with things like a pandemic or some kind of incident that might actually cause the program to be needing to be changed or whatever. So yeah, very, very, very good point. Very, very good sort of comment. In terms of bucket list experiences, I wanted to just kind of leave you with these, because I don't think there are many locations in the world that have the depth and the wealth of bucket list experiences that you have in Turkey. Having been a destination management company for many years and having had the good fortune to work in a destination that's a good destination and that's easy to sell. When I discovered Turkey with Birgul way back in the 90s, it just opened my eyes to an incredible kind of richness of destination experiences that I could only ever dream of. And, you're just so lucky as a destination to have that. So to summarize, there's total global alignment around the fact that incentive travel will recover. I didn't show you any of those slides, but very, very positive sentiment coming out from buyers in big source markets saying, yeah, we'll be back. So the question is not if, the question is when. And there's going to be a difference in different parts of the world. There's no doubt about that. And I think one of the big challenges that we have is actually figuring out which marketplaces we should actually go to on the basis of getting that quick response from. There's alignment in the survey around recovery. It will come, but there's divergence around what that will look like. There's a new focus on the intrinsic joy of travel experiences, travel with no strings attached, but travel with the conscience as CSR rises in the rankings. Destinations perceived to have dealt well with COVID-19 will recover quicker than others. We're seeing that definitely with the meteoric rise of the likes of Australia and New Zealand, which have no right to be up there because they're too difficult to get to. It takes too long to get to, but people are choosing them specifically because they have this very, very positive perception around safety. The DMC evolution continues, but in a good way now. And I think there's more opportunities for us to tell the DMC story. And I think, as Hassan kind of rightly pointed out, highlighting kind of financial stability is another important element in that. And then finally, the future is going to be about safety, domestic and regional. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. There's one comment from Michael that I need to read. I had a meeting around 2 years ago with a company at a meeting at Frankfurt. They were preparing risk management for travels and meetings. They have mentioned that for Turkey, the lights are green. So I believe it will also increase the ratio for our country after COVID. Well, that's a comment that Michael shared in the chat box, which I wanted to share. Hopefully we will have a green light one way or the other. Thank you, Patrick, for everything. I'll like to ask the audience, if you have any questions, you can feel free to switch on your mic and ask a question directly. No questions. Well, thank you, Patrick. Before we leave, yes, interesting. Everybody's speechless. Everybody's now counting 143% in 2023. Well, before we go, thank you, Patrick, for, again, I mean, it was marvelous. I enjoyed it very much. And I think SITE is working with the foundation to distract the Turkish data, right? That was our promise. We will get it once it's ready from the purely Turkish perspective. But in the meantime, after this meeting, we are happy to share with all the members and the colleagues who attended this meeting the SITE index report, which we will share with you because we have all the registrant participants, so we will share it with you. But before you go, as I said, nothing is for free in this world. I share my screen again. The ones who are interested in registering for becoming a SITE member or renewing their SITE membership, today and tomorrow is the best day to do it, as you will have free access, and Turkey has a special fee, which we are not allowed to say officially, but and it's still valid. I mean, thanks to our SITE board, we still have that rate valid. And please use advantage of it, register it to become a SITE member or to renew your SITE membership. If you register till the 18th of December, we will have all free access to the SITE conference in February. So please register, renew if you're considering, or if you want to become member, you know how to contact us in that regards. And I love this video. I shared it several times. It's an interesting one. It's totally valid for Turkey. I mean, you all know the movie Rocky, right?
The world
And
ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
He was meant to
It's a
stop
very mean
boxing
and
after the
nasty
first
place, and I
Rocky
don't care how
movie
tough
was
you are,
shot in
it
the
will
70s.
beat you to your
And
knees
still
and keep you there permanently if you let it.
So I love his videos, so I had to share it with you.
Me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's a message to you.
That's
so
how winning is done.
Is we will go back and we continue winning and winning.
Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody.
And that,
Cop,
I mean, we were hit several
that.
times, no matter what. I mean, by no matter who, but we will come back again. So don't worry. I have a lot of confidence in that.
Awesome.
So become a member. I think Merve shared in the inbox how and what to do, and we can share that as well with you. And before we all go, I love that what Ersan shared with us. And although we don't celebrate Christmas, but I love this video. So some of us do, some of us don't.
Shopping online, quieter lines. Your gifts are masked, no need to ask. No caroling, soon as we sing. Lights overboard, because we're bored. This was the passport, this was just departed in our own homes. 2020, it's a COVID window. Better year next year is all I wish on. Stay far away this holiday. Maybe next year we'll have some cheer. My hands smell from that gel sanitizer spray. Fragrance of a hospital, I'm sick of things this way. Hey, wash my hands every chance, never touch my face. Sick of washing, cleaning, and protecting my airspace. Wear a mask, watch a task, fogs my glasses up. Now I just focus on my eyes when doing my makeup. Yep, big turkey just for me. Wish me well online. I'll chill by my Christmas tree with Netflix and some wine. Frosty reception when I go to Santa's knee. He recoils and hides behind his mask, sheltered by a perspex screen. We're over COVID, it has really been unkind. Bring on 21, this year is done, let's leave all this crap behind. 2020 has been a blot. Let us leave it all behind. Hope for the future we have got. 2021 be fine. Bring days of social gathering. No toilet paper lines. It's no more Zoom meetings. 2020.
Yes, 2021 will be fine. So thank you, Porrick, again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it.